The ninth discourse. Leave the lower self to this world, the heart to the hereafter, and the innermost being to the master. Do not approach this world with confidence, for it is actually a serpent in beautiful disguise. It lures people with its charming appearance, then it destroys them. You must exercise the utmost care to avoid being caught in this trap. You must be utterly sincere in obeying your Lord, almighty and glorious is He, in befriending and serving your righteous brothers, and in refusing to indulge the appetites of the flesh. You must affirm the oneness of the Lord of truth, almighty and glorious is He, until not a single atom of the entire creation is left within your heart, and you wish for nothing except that which is compatible with the affirmation of divine unity. The whole remedy lies in affirming that the Lord of truth, almighty and glorious is He, is one, and in shunning the serpent of this world. There is nothing good in you until you really know your lower self, restrain it from indulgence and give it its proper due. Only then will it become tame in relation to the heart, while the heart becomes tame in relation to the innermost being, and the innermost being becomes tame in relation to the Lord of truth, almighty and glorious is He. You must not spare your lower selves the rod of dedicated struggle. Do not be deceived by their cunning wiles. Do not be deceived by their pretending to be asleep. You must not be taken in by the apparent sleep of the predatory animal, for he is only letting you think he is asleep, while waiting to pounce upon his prey. This lower self will make a show of tameness, submissiveness, humility and compliance with what is good, while secretly contradicting all this. Beware of what it may get up to later on. You must be prepared to experience plenty of grief and sorrow, and very little in the way of mirth and gladness, for this business is based on sorrow and sadness. It was like this for the prophets, the messengers, and the righteous ones who have gone before you. May Allah bestow His blessing and peace upon them all. Our own prophet, Allah bless him and give him peace, had to go through long periods of sadness, and he was always given to reflection. He would never laugh except to reinforce a smile, and only for the sake of politeness would he act in a jovial manner. The intelligent person amongst you will therefore not seek happiness in this world, nor in children, family, wealth, foodstuffs, articles of clothing, vehicles, or sexual opportunities. All of this is mere delusion. The believer finds happiness in the strength of his faith and certitude, and in the arrival of his heart at the door of the nearness of his Lord, almighty and glorious is He. You must open the eye of your lower self and say to it, look at your Lord and see how He looks at you. See how He has destroyed those kings and rich men who were here before you. Remember the disastrous endings of your predecessors, those who ruled this world and reveled in all the comforts it has to offer, only to have it snatched away from them and to be snatched away from it themselves. Now they are held as prisoners in the jail of torment, while their palaces stand deserted, their houses are in ruins, their properties are gone, and only their deeds remain to be accounted for. Gone are the pleasures of the flesh, and all that remains is weariness and toil. Do not exult, for there is no time for exultation while you are in prison. Do not delight in the beauty of your wife, your children, your home, and the great abundance of your material possessions. Do not exult in things that were not exulted in by the prophets, the messengers, and the righteous ones who have gone before you. May the blessing and peace of Allah be upon them all. Allah, almighty and glorious is He, has said, do not exult, Allah does not love those who exult. 28:76 He does not love those who exult in the things and people of this world, or in anything apart from Him. He does love those who exult in Him and in His nearness, almighty and glorious is He. The joyful exultation of the people is inspired by their contemplation of the experience they look forward to in the hereafter, not by worldly pleasures, delights and vanities. O you deluded fool! You have nothing of what you wish you could achieve. O heedless ones! In the hereafter there will be a terrible torment for those who have failed to act in obedience to Allah, almighty and glorious is He. If the servant's heart is on the right path, if he practices cautious restraint and leaves all things behind the back of his heart, neither the kingdom of this world nor the kingdom of the hereafter will have any great importance in his sight. He will go to meet the lions in their den. He will mingle with the beasts of the wild, and he will flee from the company of his fellow creatures. He will submit his lower self to the hunger and thirst and desolation of the desert wastes, and he will say, O guide of the perplexed, show me the way to you. He causes such people to have but one single concern. This stage is only reached, however, as the culmination of a process that begins with abstinence from everything unlawful, then requires abstinence from that which is indifferently permissible, then abstinence even from that which is absolutely lawful. It is obvious to me that you are addicted to carnal pleasures and desires, to creatures and things of this world, and to reliance on material means. So why do you talk about the spiritual states of the righteous, and claim them for yourself? You are trying to tell us about the state of people very different from yourself. You are asking us to support you at other people's expense. You go and study the records in the archives, from which you extract what those people have said, then you repeat their words as if they were your own. You try to make your listeners believe that this comes from your own inspired thinking, the power of your own imagination, and the voice of your own heart. Oh young man! First you must act on what they have said, then you can talk about it. Only then will your speech be the fruit of the tree of your own heart. This does not come about merely by observing the righteous and committing their words to memory. It can only be achieved by putting what they say into practice, by behaving properly in their company, by thinking well of them, and by keeping this up under all circumstances. The ordinary person is awarded merit to the extent of the steps he takes with his feet, while the extraordinary person is awarded merit to the extent of his spiritual aspiration. When someone's interests become one single concern, the Lord of Truth, Almighty and glorious is He, becomes one for him. When he turns his heart away from everything other than Him, the Lord of Truth, Almighty and glorious is He, takes him into His custody. As He has said, Almighty and glorious is He in the unambiguous wording of His book, my protecting friend is Allah, who has revealed the book, and He befriends the righteous. 7:196 When the heart of this servant comes into contact with his Lord, Almighty and glorious is He, he becomes his physician and his intimate friend. No one else gives him medical treatment, and no one else provides him with intimate friendship. As David, peace be upon him, used to say, "O my God, I went to the physicians of your servants, and all of them guided me to you. Guide me, O guide of the perplexed." When someone loves Allah, Almighty and glorious is He, his heart becomes a total yearning, a total detachment from everything other than Him, a total absorption. There can be no doubt that his concerns will come to be one single concern. The reality of the unveiling can only be complete after emergence from all the veils. If you really wish to reach your goal, you must give up both this world and the hereafter, and everything else between the heavenly throne and the earth below. All created beings are a veil, with the exception of the messenger, Allah bless him and give him peace, for he is the doorway. As Allah, Almighty and glorious is He, has said concerning him, Allah bless him and give him peace, whatever the messenger gives you, take it. Whatever he forbids you, abstain from it. 59:7 Thus following him, far from being a veil, is actually the means by which the goal is reached. O young man! When will your heart become pure and serene, and when will your innermost being become pure and serene, as long as you are guilty of associating partners with Allah? How can you prosper, as long as you spend every night picking on someone or other to chase after, complain to, and beg from? How can your heart become pure and serene, as long as it is so devoid of the affirmation of divine unity that it does not contain the slightest trace of it? The affirmation of divine unity is a radiant light, while the idolatrous worship of creatures is a gloomy darkness. How can you prosper, as long as your heart is so devoid of pious devotion that it does not contain the slightest trace of it? You are screened off from the Creator by creatures, screened off by material means from the Originator, screened off by trust in creatures and reliance on them. You are merely an unsubstantiated claim. No bouquet of sweet herbs is awarded on the strength of a claim with no proof. This business can only be accomplished in one of two ways. The first is by dedicated struggle and exertion, by enduring things that are very difficult and very exhausting. This is the more usual way, as experienced by the righteous. The second is a talent that requires no effort, a rare gift belonging to a few individuals only. You must attend to your personal condition as long as your faith is still weak. Do not mind the business of your family, of the man and woman next door, of the folk in your town and district. Once your faith has grown strong, however, you must make an impression on your family and your children, then on the people at large. Do not make them notice you until after you have armed yourself with the armor of pious devotion, keeping the helmet of faith on the head of your heart, the sword of the affirmation of divine unity in your hand, and in your quiver the arrows of the answer to prayers. You must ride the steed of helpful guidance and learn the tactics of attack and retreat, of cut and thrust, then bear down upon the enemies of the Lord of Truth. Almighty and glorious is He. At this point you will receive support and assistance from all 6 directions, left and right, in front and behind, above and below. You will snatch your fellow creatures from the hands of Satan and carry them to the gate of the Lord of Truth. Almighty and glorious is He. When someone has attained to this station, the veils will be removed from the eye of his heart. Whether he looks to right or left, in front or behind, above or below, his gaze will pierce through and nothing will block his vision. He will lift up the head of his heart and see the throne and the heavens, and when he lowers it he will see all the levels of the earth and all its inhabitants, the jinn, the human beings and the wild animals. All of this is the result of faith and experience of the Lord of Truth. Almighty and glorious is He, together with knowledge of the law. When you have attained to this station, you must summon your fellow creatures to the door of the Lord of Truth. Almighty and glorious is He, but nothing can come of you before this. If you invite the people when you are not yet at the door of the Lord of Truth, Almighty and glorious is He, your invitation to them will fall as a curse upon you. Whenever you try to move, you will find yourself on your knees. Whenever you seek promotion you will be demoted. You do not have a clue about the righteous. You are mere babble. You are a tongue without a soul. You are an outer with no inner, a public place with no private room, a tour with no force. Your sword is made of wood and your arrows are matchsticks. You are a coward with no courage. The most trifling arrow would kill you. A tiny bug could mean the end of the world as far as you are concerned. O Allah, fortify our religion, our faith and our bodies with your nearness, and give us in this world good, and good in the hereafter, and guard us against the torment of the fire. 2:201